How's it going, guys? Today I'm going to show you what it's like to drive the all-new Tesla Model S Plaid from a first-person point of view at night. Wanted to try something different, do a little nighttime point of view, so let me know if you guys actually like the way this looks. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Plaid, it's got 3 motors, 1 in the front, 2 in the back, making a combined output of 1,020 horsepower and 1,050 pound-feet of torque. 0 to 60 happens in 1.99 seconds, making this the quickest accelerating production car in the world. Faster than a Bugatti Chiron, faster than a Koenigsegg, faster than any car other than the Rimac Nevera, which isn't currently in production quite yet. Soon, and I'd love to get my hands on one of those. As you can tell, we've got the weird yoke steering wheel, which honestly, for the first 2 weeks of ownership, was a little awkward to get used to, but now I'm very used to the yoke, and I honestly like it. Is it as good as a normal steering wheel in intense driving environments? No, but it makes the driving experience so different than anything else. That's what I like about it. When you hop out of a different car and into the Plaid, it's like no other vehicle because of its steering wheel and because of its ridiculous amount of power. This car starts at 130 grand, fully optioned, it's about 150, and it's faster, or quicker, as people say, than a bunch of hypercars that cost millions of dollars. Now, in terms of the faster component, a lot of people think the Tesla is not actually that fast. Currently, the Tesla can go 174 miles an hour, but somebody de-restricted the car and hit 216 miles an hour. That is supercar, hypercar levels of speed. Hopefully they de-restrict the car at some point. It was supposed to go 200, but I guess because of the brakes and something to do with the tire safety, although I don't really buy that, they didn't unlock the 200 mile an hour top speed. In terms of drivability, this is such a nice car to daily drive. It's smooth, it's easy to drive, it's not intimidating having that 1,000 horsepower, and honestly, it has so much traction because it's all-wheel drive that I don't think there's many cars with this level of power that are this manageable. It's really, really impressive. Nice GT3 just passed by. And then, when you pick up the pace on a canyon road, this thing actually does well. The car was faster around Willow Springs than an M5 CS. It's the fastest production sedan in the world around many tracks. Now, it doesn't have the sedan record at the Nürburgring, and my guess is when they tested the car, it was limited to 164 miles an hour. And on the massive straightaways, this car is easily capable of exceeding that. So on the main straight, before the end of the Nordschleife, it's sitting there at 164 when other cars are capable of going much, much faster. And with the brakes, they do fade after a significant amount of driving and also depending upon weather. I think after 7 minutes and 30 seconds of intense driving in the Plaid, that's a little much for these non-carbon ceramic brakes. A sedan with carbon ceramics is obviously gonna not experience that fade and do better. So if they put carbon ceramics on this car, de-restricted the top speed, I think it would have a ridiculous Nürburgring time. I'll pull over in a second to talk about some of the screen options. 17-inch display, I love this screen. And I also love the navigation. It's the first car that I've ever owned where I've actually used the navigation. Normally it's just kind of annoying and hard to type in, and the layout just doesn't look as good as your phone, so you just use your phone. On the Plaid, it's super easy. Turn-by-turn directions right here on the screen and a nice layout right there, but it also gives you a second display right here to the left of the yoke. And because we've got that yoke, you don't have that top portion of the wheel to block any of your view. Typically in cars, you know, you've got the top half of the steering wheel, so sometimes if you sit too high or too low and the steering wheel's adjusted in a strange way, you can't really see the dash. I love the fact that you can so clearly see this. Now, we are in drag strip mode right now, so I could do that launch in the beginning to do 0 to 60 really, really fast, but we can also put it in multiple different modes. There's a chill mode, a sport mode, Plaid mode, and drag strip mode. There's also a track mode as well, so you can go ahead and put the car into track mode. You can modify so much of this car. It's really impressive. So they've got some presets. I've got a VV setting here. Now, you can change the handling to 100% rear wheel drive. How cool is that? Or 100% front wheel drive. I don't know why you would do that, but it's pretty cool to be able to choose. Do you want a front wheel drive car? Do you want it to be 50-50 or fully rear wheel drive? And this thing will spin like a top when it's fully rear wheel drive with traction off. We've also got a really cool graphic here, shows you lap times, difference in your lap times, and also the temperature of the batteries. Now, it's got a 20-stage traction control. Most cars have 1, traction on, traction off. Some sports cars have 3 or 4. This has 20. You can have -10, that's like a ridiculous amount of no traction, or +10, you've got all the traction you need in the world. You can also change the regenerative braking so that the car slows itself down quicker or slower, depending upon your desired outcome. It does have a really cool infotainment. I use this sometimes when charging, although the majority of the charging I do is at home, so every day when I wake up, the car is ready, fully charged. I don't visit the supercharging stations all that often, but there are some cool things that you can do, like watching Netflix or Hulu if you are charging at a public station. It only works, obviously, when the car's in park, for obvious reasons. There's the arcade as well. Now, the only thing that works while you're driving, actually, is the sketch pad. So what me and my girlfriend figured out is you can play Hangman while you're on road trips, which is kind of fun. Or maybe not. I don't know. I like it. All right, let's get back out onto the road here. Choose a direction on the touch screen. For those of you who are unfamiliar with the Plaid's driving controls, you can swipe up to go forward, down to go backwards. It actually has an emergency override down here. If you touch these controls, you can actually put it in park, reverse, neutral, drive down here, which most people don't know. But usually I just use this. Now, you can use this auto shift out of park beta, which will determine for you whether it thinks you want to go forwards or backwards, but I think I'd rather choose myself. Now, let me show you the difference between chill mode and Plaid mode, and then we'll do another launch so you can experience that ridiculous acceleration, because there is something with the launch that I think a lot of people don't know, and I would really like to talk about. So if we go, get out of track mode, go into chill mode, watch how slow this car accelerates. Remember, 0 to 60 in 1.99 seconds in Plaid mode. Watch. This is full throttle. I mean, it's as slow as a Prius. And then if you put it in sport mode, it's as fast as most supercars. And then if you put it into Plaid mode, you'll destroy almost every supercar. So regarding the launch, if we put it in drag strip mode, a lot of people were complaining that you have to hold the car down to go into cheetah stance. So you hold the brake, you hold the gas, and over 8 seconds, the car lowers the front end of the vehicle down. But what people don't realize is you only have to hold it for half a second, and it'll still do launch control. Maybe not quite as optimized as the full 8-second launch control, but in a pinch, you can do a launch control just as fast as any gas car can. That car's got to rev up to 4,500, 5,000 RPMs, and then dump the clutches and go. This car, half a second with both pressed down, and boom, you are well on your way. Go ahead and take it out of drag strip mode. It's funny, when you do have it in drag strip mode, this car makes so much noise. And you wouldn't expect it, but it makes all these fan noises to cool the batteries as well as the motors to the optimum temperature. And then, of course, when you put it back into non-drag strip mode, it barely makes any noise whatsoever. Now, check this out. One of the coolest parts about the Plaid, and Teslas in general, is Autopilot. So to activate Autopilot, all I have to do is press in this little button right here one time, set to 5 miles an hour over the speed limit, perfect cruising. And look at this, it can go around turns, no problem at all. I haven't had this fail me once, and I use it all the time. It is so nice for long distance commuting. I can't stress that enough. And it's something that's really missing from Rolls Royces, which are kind of the ultimate commuting vehicle. It's more comfortable than this, of course, more luxurious, but there's something to not having to drive in certain scenarios that is a form of luxury. And a lot of people don't know that you don't actually have to move the steering wheel to show that you're present every 30 seconds or so. It seems to change, actually, how much time elapses between needing to put your hands on the wheel. You don't actually have to shake the steering wheel. You can just either use the cruise control knob by putting it up one or down one, or the volume controls work as well. So just a little, just like that, and you're good to go. When I first bought the car and I thought you needed to move the wheel, sometimes I would yank it out of Look at that, take over immediately. All I'm trying to do is tell you that I'm ready and awake, and it thought we were crashing. But put it back in. This thing can literally do stunt road, the road we were just on, in the canyons, at the speed limit, which is really, really impressive. I've put 18,000 miles on this Plaid so far, and I gotta say, this is probably my favorite daily driver that I've ever owned. It's so nice as an around town vehicle. It's easy to park. It's got Autopilot. It's got all the creature comforts you could ever want. The speaker system is phenomenal in this car. The navigation is easy. Tons of space in the front, tons of legroom in the back. One time I even took this thing camping, folded down the rear seats, and you could fully, at 5'11", extend my legs and sleep in it like it's a bed, which is pretty cool. And they make these custom beds as well that make it more comfortable than whatever I experienced just sleeping on the hard ground. And then on the other end of the spectrum, this car is insane. The performance for the money is crazy. The last thing people tend to criticize Tesla about is the build quality. And I have to say, they have radically improved it with the new Model S and the Model X. If your only experience with a Tesla so far has been in a Model 3 or a couple generation old Model S, I ask that you try one if you have the opportunity, because I think it'll change your opinion of the brand. I liked Tesla before this. I like what they're doing, you know, coming out with fast electric cars that look decent. It's not a Chevy Volt or a Prius, but I didn't love them, and it didn't have that wow factor to me. When they completely revamped the car with the refreshed Model S, yes, having 1,020 horsepower and 1,050 pound-feet of torque was one of the reasons why I bought the car. But literally the only component this car shares in the interior with the old Model S is the seat rails that these seats mount to. Every single thing is new. And the build quality and the fit and finish is so much better than previous generation cars, it's kind of ridiculous. And then you also have to remember, with most people's experience only being in their friend's Model 3, that car starts at just under $40,000 after tax rebates. You can't compare a sub $40,000 car to a $150,000 car. They're just not the same. Now, in terms of delivery experience, this car did come with a tiny little scratch on the back bumper. Now, so did my E63 when that was delivered. So, you know, that's a $140,000 Mercedes that had a little scratch on it, and the dealership fixed it when I pointed it out. And these guys fixed it super quickly with the Tesla. But it wasn't like there was a whole bunch of crazy panel gap and a bunch of crappy misfitting parts and weird rubber sticking out in places that it shouldn't in the window. They actually did a really good job with this car. So the whole build quality thing, I think, goes out of the water. I love this car. You don't have to do anything other than replace the tires and brakes sometimes. No oil changes. It's literally no maintenance whatsoever. And the batteries, I imagine, will last a very long time. I guess we'll see. I honestly don't actually know how long the Plaid batteries will last, but clearly it lasts 17,000 miles so far and shows no signs of slowing down. In terms of range, the car gets 398 miles of range with the 19-inch wheels. These are the upgraded 21-inch wheels that come with better tires on them, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S's versus the Pirelli P0s, but the range drops to 348 miles, so 50 miles subtracted because of the bigger rolling diameter and more rolling resistance. Cuts away from that range, but I think it's worth it. It looks cooler. I've obviously swapped the wheels out now, but they are the same exact size and spec as the factory wheels, so I could maintain those stock tires and not really mess anything up. I also love that you can just adjust the ride height. I've slammed this car to the ground, and you can adjust the ride height really easily. We got to do another launch because we're at a green light, and we're off. Oh, this car is so flippin' ridiculous. All right, back to the suspension. So I slammed this car using lowering links. And the cool thing is, because it has factory air suspension, even though it's in low right now, I can change it to medium to raise the car up. And then when I'm going at low speeds, you can shift it into very high. And it doesn't just do a front lift, it raises the rear as well. And it's got really impressive ground clearance. There's also some really cool suspension data here that you can click on. I would never look at any of that. It's probably useless, but as an engineering nerd, I kind of like seeing all of the data. Well, guys, I love this car. I highly recommend it to anyone who's thinking about purchasing one. Seriously, Tesla's not paying me to say this. I really wish they were, but maybe someday. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Like always, please browse the channel and subscribe. Let me know what you think of the nighttime POVs. Look forward to seeing you next video.